True creepy things seen on empty highways. The highway was one of those stretches of American asphalt that felt older than the land itself, like it had been poured not by machines but by some grim hand from the underworld. It cut through the Texas night like a scar, black as pitch under a cloud-choked sky, and every now and then the headlights of my truck would catch the reflective green of a road sign pointing to towns I'd never heard of, places with names that sounded more like curses than destinations. You know the kind of road I'm talking about, empty, endless, humming with the low roar of tires that start to sound like whispers if you drive long enough without another car in sight. It was just me out there, or so I thought, a coffee-stained map on the passenger seat, a thermos that had gone cold hours ago, and a gnawing sensation at the base of my skull that I wasn't supposed to be on that stretch of road. My father used to say highways at night belonged to two kinds of people, the desperate and the damned. I wasn't sure which one I was yet, but the night had a way of deciding for you. I kept driving, though the sensible part of me whispered that I should have pulled over hours ago. The road stretched on, not just physically but psychologically, like a rubber band pulling tighter with every mile. My eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror, not because there was anyone behind me, God knew the last pair of headlights I'd seen had faded half an hour back, but because I couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror was lying. Sometimes I thought I saw a shape back there, something not quite car, not quite human, more like a smudge moving against the dark. You know how when you stare at something long enough, it starts to warp, and the longer you stare the more certain you are that it was never supposed to be there in the first place? That's how the mirror felt to me. Once, for half a heartbeat, I swore I saw a pale hand press against the glass from inside the truck bed. Just fingers, thin and too long, slipping back into the shadows when I blinked. I told myself it was the tricks of exhaustion, the road hypnotizing me the way it does if you let the lines blur too much. But when I leaned forward and wiped the windshield with the back of my sleeve, smearing dust into streaks, I noticed the odometer hadn't moved in the last 10 miles. It was stuck, like the truck wasn't going anywhere at all. That realization sank into me colder than any night air could. Out there, between nothing and nowhere, I had the growing suspicion that I wasn't driving through the highway, something darker was driving through me. The strangest thing about highways at night isn't the silence, it's the way the world starts to fold itself up, as if the edges of reality are being trimmed down until there's nothing left but road, blacktop, and you. No trees, no fences, no power lines, at least none that mattered. I began to notice the mile markers weren't changing either. The first time, I thought I just hadn't been paying attention. But then the second time, the same number blinked by in the sweep of my headlights. 237. A few miles later, though miles started to feel like a dangerous assumption, the same battered green sign, the number peeling like dead skin, 237. The highway wasn't stretching forward anymore, it was folding in, feeding itself, the way a snake might swallow its own tail. My truck rattled as if it too sensed the wrongness, the steering wheel twitching under my hands as though it wanted to veer somewhere else, anywhere else. That's when the radio came alive. Not with music, not with talk, just a voice. A man's voice, rough and wet like gravel soaked in rainwater. "Don't stop," it rasped, low and deliberate, a whisper that crawled up the back of my neck. The problem was the radio had been dead for years. I'd torn the fuse out myself after it kept shorting, yet there it was, hissing and humming like an old throat clearing itself. "Don't stop," the voice said again, this time sharper, like a warning. I snapped the dial, slapped the dash, but the voice didn't fade. It burrowed deeper, like it wasn't coming from the speakers at all but from somewhere under the seat, from the road, from the engine's low growl. I told myself not to listen, but the more I gripped the wheel, the more I realized I was obeying. I wasn't going to stop. I couldn't. Something out there wanted me to. You'd think that after the voice, after the signs that wouldn't change, after the odometer that froze like time itself had stopped ticking, I would have turned around. But the thing about empty highways is that they worm into your logic, they convince you that turning back is worse than going forward. I tried, I swear I did. I slowed down, checked my mirror again, nothing but the yawning mouth of darkness, and eased the wheel into a wide U-turn. For a moment it felt normal, the tires crunching against the shoulder gravel, the headlights sweeping over dead grass and scrub brush. But the second I straightened out, ready to head back the way I'd come, my stomach sank into my shoes. Because ahead of me, stretching perfectly straight, was the exact same road. The same bend in the horizon, the same faint rise, and when the next marker flashed in the light, the same peeling numbers, 237. I cursed out loud, louder than I meant to, my voice bouncing off the cab walls like a stranger had shouted it. My throat burned with the effort. I pressed harder on the gas, like I could bully my way out of whatever trap I'd driven into. The truck whined, engine protesting, but the speedometer climbed. 50, 60, 70. The faster I went, the more the lines on the road blurred into a single glowing ribbon. My vision tunneled until it was just that endless strip of white dashed lines pulling me forward. Then, just as I thought I might break free, something darted across the road. Not a deer, not a coyote, no animal I'd ever seen moved like that. It was tall, too tall, with arms that hung almost to the ground and legs that didn't bend right, galloping in jerks, its head lolling unnaturally as if it weren't attached properly. I slammed the brakes, tires screaming, the whole truck shuddering as it fishtailed. For a split second, caught in my high beams, I saw its face, or what passed for one. White as chalk, with holes where eyes should have been, and a grin carved from ear to ear. Then it was gone, swallowed by the dark, leaving only the stink of something rotten and wet leaking through the vents. I sat there for a long while, hands locked on the wheel, foot trembling against the brake as if I were trying to keep the whole world from sliding forward. The stink in the truck didn't go away. It got worse, thick and oily, clinging to the back of my throat until every breath tasted like spoiled meat. I cracked the window, hoping the night air would wash it out, but what came in was worse, cold, sharp, carrying a faint noise that made my scalp prickle. At first I thought it was the wind. Then I realized it was voices. Dozens of them, whispering fast and low, layered over each other so that no word stood out but the intent was clear. They were talking about me. I yanked the window up and pressed the lock button, though I couldn't have said why. Who was out there to keep out? The highway was empty for miles in either direction. Still, my heart hammered like I'd glimpsed headlights bearing down. I told myself to breathe, to calm down, that fear was just exhaustion with a mask on. But when I dared to look in the mirror again, I wished I hadn't. There was something in the bed of the truck. Not the chalk-faced creature, that thing was gone, but a shape hunkered low, like it had been riding with me all along. The glass was too smeared with grime to make out detail, just the suggestion of limbs folded wrong, head cocked like a crow. My gut clenched so tight I thought I'd be sick. Every instinct screamed at me not to turn around, not to open the door, not to acknowledge it. My father's words came back to me, the desperate and the damned. I pressed the gas again, and the truck lurched forward like a horse sensing spurs. The whispers outside grew louder as I picked up speed, as if the very night was chasing me. I gritted my teeth, eyes locked on the road, and promised myself I would not stop again. Not for the voices, not for the thing in the mirror, not for anything. But deep down, I already knew the highway wasn't done with me yet. The miles, or the illusion of miles, spooled out beneath me, but the road refused to change. Same cracked asphalt, same fading paint, same horizon that never seemed to draw closer. It was like driving in a photograph. My knuckles ached from gripping the wheel too hard, yet the thought of loosening my hold filled me with a terror I couldn't name. At some point, the clock on the dash blinked out. One moment it was 2:17 a.m., the next it was nothing but a black circle staring back at me. I tapped it with a finger, harder, until the glass cracked with a tiny pop, but no numbers returned. That's when I noticed something worse. The stars were gone. The sky above had been smeared with clouds when I started, but there'd been breaks, pinpricks of light. Now there was nothing. No stars, no moon, just a slab of pitch pressing down. My headlights felt weaker for it, their beams swallowed after a few feet as if the dark had substance, like water. Then, up ahead, a glow bloomed on the roadside. My chest swelled with relief before my brain caught up. It wasn't another car, not a gas station, not even a porch light from some lonely farmhouse. It was a lamppost. Just one. Standing crooked in the gravel, its bulb sputtering like it was drowning in shadows. As I approached, I saw something hanging beneath it. Not a sign, not a banner. A shape. Human. My stomach heaved, while scorching my throat as I realized it was a man, or what had been one. He dangled by the arms, wrists twisted into the metal fixture, body swaying though there was no wind. His head lolled, and even at a distance I saw his mouth open and shut like he was whispering something, words too faint to hear over the roar of my engine. For a heartbeat I thought I should stop, help, do something. But then his eyes snapped up, glowing pale as bone in my headlights, and I knew if I slowed down, if I so much as let off the gas, he'd find a way to crawl inside the cab with me. I floored it instead, the truck screaming past him, the lamp post shrinking in the mirror until it vanished into the dark. Only then did I realize I could still hear him. A whisper, soft and steady, right behind my ear. I wish I could tell you that the highway ended, that somehow I found my way back to civilization, to truck stops with buzzing neon signs and the smell of burnt coffee, to gas stations where the cashier looked bored instead of hungry. But I didn't. The road kept stretching, an umbilical cord tethering me to something I didn't want to meet. The whispers had faded into the background, so faint now they almost sounded like the static hum of tires against asphalt, and maybe that was worse. Silence is dangerous. Silence means they're waiting. I don't know how long I drove, time was gone, swallowed whole, but at some point my headlights picked up a glow in the distance. Not a lamppost this time. A building. Squat, square, leaning against the dark like it had been left behind when the rest of the world packed up and moved on. Relief bloomed in me despite every warning voice in my head. My fuel gauge was lying to me, but I knew I'd been driving too long to still have a full tank. The truck was running on fumes, or maybe on fear, and if there was even the chance of a roof and a phone inside that place, I had to take it. As I drew closer, I saw the peeling letters on a faded sign. Rest area, 2 miles. My chest unclenched. A rest area, something ordinary, something real. I pressed the gas, eyes fixed on that promise of normalcy. But as the building grew sharper in the light, I realized something was wrong. It wasn't new wrong. It was the kind of wrong that had been festering for decades. Windows black and shattered. Doors hanging crooked. Picnic tables rotted through, as though nobody had sat at them for years. My truck rattled into the lot, and I swear the engine sighed in relief like a dog dropping at its master's feet. But the relief didn't last. Because even before I cut the ignition, I saw that I wasn't alone. Something was standing at the far edge of the lot. Tall, thin, motionless. Watching. At first I told myself it was a trick of the light, that the figure at the edge of the lot was nothing more than a tree stump or a bent signpost catching the beams of my headlights. But the longer I looked, the more my stomach tightened into a knot. It was a man, or at least the shape of one. Too tall, too thin, arms dangling low like they didn't know what to do with themselves. His head lolled to the side, as if the neck wasn't strong enough to hold it upright. I cut the engine, and with that silence fell heavy, pressing against the truck like a hand over my mouth. The whispers were gone, but in their place was something worse, anticipation. That figure didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Just stood there at the edge of the crumbling pavement, waiting. My first thought was to lock the doors, to hunker down and wait until daylight, or whatever passed for daylight on this cursed stretch of road, but another thought slithered in, softer and more persuasive. If you stay in the truck, he'll come closer. I didn't know if that thought was my own or something else's, but it rooted deep. I cracked the door, the rusty hinge groaning like a scream, and stepped out. The air was colder here, sharp as knives, carrying a smell like wet ashes. My boots crunched on gravel and I froze, because the figure reacted. Not much, just a tilt of the head, a twitch in the shoulder, but enough to tell me it was alive, aware, and interested in me. "Hello." I croaked, though my throat was so dry it came out as a whisper. No reply, but I swear I heard something in the silence. A sucking sound, faint, like mud pulling at boots. My pulse thudded in my ears. The rest area loomed behind me, its entrance yawning open, dark as a throat. Part of me wanted to run inside, but another part knew the building wasn't a refuge. It was a trap, just like the road. The figure shifted again, one jerky step forward, and that was enough. I turned and stumbled toward the doors, not caring if it was a mistake. At least inside, I could put walls between us. At least inside, I wouldn't have to see it watching me. The rest area swallowed me whole the second I stepped through the broken doors. The air inside was worse than outside, heavy with mildew and something sour, like old pennies and spoiled meat. My boots stuck faintly to the tiles, each step peeling away with a wet sound that echoed too loudly in the dark. A row of vending machines lined one wall, their glass cracked, their contents long since turned to dust. One of them flickered weakly, the light inside stuttering like a dying heart. For a split second I thought I saw faces pressed against the glass from the inside, pale, slack faces with eyes too wide, mouths opened as though they were screaming silently for help. I blinked and they were gone. The light sputtered out completely, plunging the corner into shadow. My breath came fast, too loud, so I tried holding it, but that only made me aware of something else. There were footsteps in here, and they weren't mine. They came slow, deliberate, from deeper in the building, dragging faintly across the floor like bare soles. I froze, every muscle tightening, and the sound stopped too, as if whoever, or whatever, it was knew I'd noticed. My mouth went dry, and I thought of turning back, running out to the truck, but the memory of that tall figure outside snapped the idea in half. I couldn't go back, not yet. So I moved forward, past a bathroom sign half-hanging from one chain, past a row of plastic chairs with straps of duct tape across them like restraints. The dragging footsteps started again, this time closer, like they were circling me. My heart slammed against my ribs, each beat loud enough that I wondered if it could hear. Then, faintly, I smelled something new cutting through the rot: gasoline. Sharp, chemical, burning in the back of my nose. I followed the scent into the main lobby, where I found the source. A single gas can, old and dented, sat in the middle of the floor. Its lid was off. The liquid inside shimmered unnaturally, not like fuel but like oil on water, rainbow colors writhing even in the dark. I took a step back, bile rising in my throat. That's when the footsteps started again, right behind me this time, so close I swear I felt the breath of something cold stir the hairs on the back of my neck. I didn't turn around. That's the only reason I think I'm still alive to tell this. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to spin, to face whatever was breathing down my neck, but something deeper whispered, if you look, it becomes real. So I kept my eyes forward, fixed on the warped gas can gleaming on the lobby floor. My legs felt like they were moving through syrup, but somehow I forced them to carry me past it, toward the hallway at the far end. The smell of gasoline thickened as I walked, mixing now with something more metallic, coppery, blood. My boots slipped once, skidding through a puddle I hadn't noticed. I looked down. It wasn't water. The dark smear stretched down the hallway like something had been dragged. My breath caught, and against every survival instinct, I followed it. The smear led to a door, half open, with the word custodial stenciled across it in faded paint. I pushed it with one finger, and it swung wide, the hinges shrieking. Inside, the air was suffocating. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with old bottles and broken mops. But that wasn't what froze me. In the corner, beneath a single swinging bulb, was a man. Or what was left of one. His uniform was the same faded brown as the building, a patch on his chest that might have once said, maintenance, though the letters were worn to ghosts. His eyes were gone, sockets staring black and empty, but his mouth still worked, opening and closing, muttering something too low to hear. His hands were clamped tight around the handle of another gas can, this one overturned, its contents spilling in a slick across the floor. The rainbow sheen spread toward me, licking the toes of my boots, and for one horrific second I thought it moved on its own, flowing against gravity, reaching for me. I stumbled back, knocking into a shelf, and the noise broke whatever spell held him still. His head snapped up, and though he had no eyes, I felt him see me. His jaw stretched impossibly wide, the mutter swelling into a howl that rattled the bottles on the shelves. I bolted, slamming the door behind me, but the howl followed, vibrating through the walls, through the floor, through the marrow of my bones. The howl chased me down the hallway like a pack of wild dogs, echoing so loud I swore the whole building shook. I didn't look back. My boots hammered the tiles, slipping on patches of that rainbow slick as it spread unnaturally fast, seeping out from under the custodial door like the building itself was bleeding fuel. My chest burned, lungs clawing for air, but I didn't dare stop. I barreled into the lobby again, nearly tripping over one of the bolted-down chairs, and for a moment I thought I was safe, until I saw the vending machines. Their glass fronts, once cracked and dead, were alive now, pulsing faintly, as if lit from within. Faces pressed against the inside, dozens of them, pale and contorted, mouths working soundlessly. Some of them looked like children, their tiny palms slapping against the glass, leaving smears that faded as quickly as they appeared. My stomach lurched, bile scalding my throat, and I tore my eyes away only to find something worse. The tall figure from the parking lot was standing inside now, framed by the entrance like it had always belonged there. Its head scraped the ceiling, neck bent at an obscene angle. It didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood, blocking the way back to my truck. My mind skittered like a moth against a bulb, frantic, desperate, unable to land. Behind me, the custodial door exploded off its hinges, crashing to the floor as the eyeless man stumbled into the lobby, gas can dragging at his side, his howl still rising. The rainbow slick followed him, crawling like a living shadow, hungry for me. I was trapped between two nightmares, the tall thing watching with its two long arms dangling, and the eyeless man staggering closer, his jaw stretched wider than any human mouth should go. Panic took over where reason failed. I veered hard left, shoving through a side door marked, "Staff Only," not caring where it led. The door slammed behind me, and I collapsed against it, gasping, sweat pouring down my face. On the other side, silence. No howls, no footsteps, no whispers. Just silence, too clean, too absolute, the kind of silence that means something is listening. The staff hallway was narrow and low-ceilinged, lined with peeling beige paint that seemed to sweat in the dim light. My breath came in ragged gasps, every inhale thick with the stink of mold and something faintly sweet, like fruit left too long to rot. I pushed deeper, desperate to put distance between me and whatever waited in the lobby. The corridor branched, and for a moment I thought I saw movement, a flicker of shadow darting across one of the side passages. I froze, chest tight, until I realized the walls themselves were shifting. The paint bubbled and peeled as though something underneath was pressing against it, dozens of hands pushing outward, fingertips straining through the plaster. I stumbled backward, heart hammering, and one section split open with a sick, wet sound. A face pushed through. Not human, not exactly, but close enough to terrify me more than anything monstrous could. Its skin sagged like wax melting, features drooping, eyes wide and blind, mouth working silently like the others I'd seen behind the vending machine glass. More faces began pushing through, stretching the walls until they rippled with pale masks, all whispering with mouths that barely formed words. "Stay," they hissed, overlapping voices crawling over one another. "Stay, stay." My legs shook, but I forced myself forward, shoving past the grasping hands that tore at my jacket, fingernails splintering against the fabric. At the far end of the hall, a door stood slightly ajar, leaking a thin strip of orange light. Hope flared in me, reckless and bright. I threw myself at it, bursting through, only to stumble outside again. The parking lot. My truck. The highway stretching endlessly beyond. Relief surged through me, so sharp it nearly knocked me to my knees. I'd made it out. I was free. But then I saw the truth. The tall figure was gone, the eyeless man was gone, but carved into the asphalt, glowing faintly in that same oil-slick shimmer, were words. Huge letters spanning the entire lot, impossible to miss. They read, "You are part of the road now." I stood frozen in the lot, staring at those words burning faintly in the asphalt, and for the first time since the nightmare began, I felt a kind of clarity. The road hadn't trapped me by accident. It hadn't swallowed me up because I was unlucky. It had chosen me. My truck sat there with the driver's door open, engine still idling though I hadn't touched the keys. The radio crackled again, and that same gravel-voiced whisper slithered through, "Don't stop." Except this time, it wasn't a warning. It was a command. My legs carried me forward without my permission, boots dragging across the glowing words, and when I climbed back into the cab, the seat felt different, softer, almost warm, like it had been waiting for me. I gripped the wheel, and for a heartbeat I swore it pulsed beneath my fingers like living flesh. The headlights flickered on by themselves, spilling white across the endless blacktop. And just like that, the world shifted. The gas station, the rest area, even the stars overhead, all gone. There was only the road, stretching on forever, humming with a low vibration that sank into my bones. I pressed the gas, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't do anything else. The truck rolled forward smoothly, almost gliding, the odometer dead, the mile markers repeating, time itself meaningless. In the mirror, I thought I saw others now. Headlights, faint but steady, lined up behind me in the dark. A caravan of the lost, each driver with the same hollow stare, the same white-knuckle grip on their wheels. I wanted to scream, to fight, to wake up, but the road had its hooks in me, and screaming wouldn't change a thing. Somewhere deep inside, I understood the truth. This highway wasn't a place at all. It was a hunger. It fed on the desperate and the damned, just like my father said, and now I was part of its feast. The lines blurred, the hum grew louder, and as the horizon folded in on itself one more time, I realized I'd never leave. None of us would. The highway doesn't end. It just waits for the next traveler to take a wrong turn into its mouth. And when they do, I'll be there, just another pair of headlights in the dark, watching, waiting, driving forever.